Hello, students. This is your instructor, Mr. G. I'm going to do the Chapter 1 lecture. Sometimes these lectures, they either run long or they run short. This one is not going to be very long, but I do want you to read Chapter 1, okay? That's going to be your assignment, Chapter 1. All right, let's see here. Oh, got to move over this way. All right. Okay. Chapter 1 is Native Peoples and European contact. Let me bring myself down a little bit here so that you can see, you can read it. Okay. All right. So right here we have, it encompasses the history of 8 other southern states. The Florida parishes were renamed part of the Spanish Empire until after the War of 1812. Now, what happens is, the reason why they're named the Florida parishes is because they were part of present-day Florida. All right? And that is Louisiana as it looks now. And this is a map. Basically, you're not able to read it very well, but it shows you all of the rivers that come off of it, the Arkansas, the Mississippi, and so Missouri, and so forth. And this is the territory of Louisiana, which would later be sold to the United States by Napoleon. And we'll get to that. So this is basically showing you a map of the indigenous people that lived here. And the indigenous people were the Chitimacha, the Attakapas, the Caddoan, Tunica, Natchez, and Muskegon Indians. Now, we know they were here because up north in northern Louisiana, we know there are mounds where there are burial mounds where they buried their dead. So we know it's up there, and that's how we do research as historians. Is we can look at civilizations. Actually, you can glean a lot from somebody's tombstone later on in life. But it's a wonderful thing when you do that for research purposes. This is Alonso Alvarez de Pineda. You'll read about him in your book. He was one of the very first Spanish explorers to set foot on Louisiana territory, what is now Louisiana territory. Cabeza de Vaca. Cabeza de Vaca is a very interesting person. He was captured on one expedition by some Native Americans, and he documented it all. He wrote it all down later on. He was captive for 3 years, and he wrote it all down. He made his way from Florida all the way up to the Florida Panhandle, to the Gulf Coast, then Louisiana, and then the Texas coast. And he wrote about it. He wrote about these Native Americans that they ran into. That's why we know a lot about them, or we know that they actually existed. And this, of course, is it's actually a German map. If you look at it, it says Atlantische Ozean and Gulf von Mexico. That's German, all right? But it gives you a general idea as to what the pre-settlement Louisiana looked like. Hernando de Soto, he had a proposed route to go from Florida all the way into the interior of the United States through present-day Georgia and South Carolina, across North Carolina and into Mississippi, and then into Arkansas, and then finally into Texas. One of the very first settlements that Bienville made after 1699 was in Mobile Bay. But De Soto, they were looking for what was known as El Dorado. And El Dorado was a lost city of gold. They found some gold later on when they went down to South America and they raided the Aztecs and the Incas. And this, finally, is the former French flag. It is a blue flag with the fleur-de-lis. Normally, the fleur-de-lis was used as a symbol for France, but it was also used if someone was a criminal. They would be branded with that, so people would know that they were a criminal. This is the French in North America. This is disputed parts right here. If you look at it on this map right there, This was disputed French between the French and the English, disputed between the English and the Spanish. And the French basically were the first ones to make their way into Canada. That's basically why Canada is somewhat French-speaking today, especially in like Montreal and things like that. I went to Montreal 2003, and they speak French. They speak English, but it's with their French accent. They talk like this. Okay. Marquette and Joliet had left Canada and came down the Mississippi River, and they made their way down Louisiana way. Mostly, a lot of these missions that left for exploration, the Spanish used to take missionaries with them to try and convert the native peoples. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. On this particular incident, excuse me, it kind of worked to their advantage. But there were several explorers here a long time ago, before even Bienville had left Canada to come down to Louisiana. All right. Now, René Robert Cavelier de La Salle came from Canada, started at Fort Frontenac, and made his way to Fort Niagara, which is probably near about where New York is now, and then to Fort St. Joseph, and then to Fort Crèvecoeur, before he made his way into the Mississippi River Valley. Later on, he would take another trip to make it to Fort St. Louis, but he was killed by his own men and thrown in a river. And that was an inglorious end to a man who was a real adventurer and hero. Okay, so that ends the lesson for today. I know it's short, but you'll get more information from the book. So I'd like you to read chapter 1. It should be available online for you. And if you find it, these lectures are going to be a little bit longer next time. I've been teaching full time now, which is unusual for me. Normally I just teach part time, but I'm teaching full time at a high school here in Jefferson Parish, and it's taking up a lot of my time. But this class is very important to me. And but I'd like you to read chapter 1. It has to do with the Native American peoples and the European, not only the European meetings, but the European clashes with Native Americans. In American history, we see it more with the English up in the New England colonies. At what time in history they had given the Indians blankets with the smallpox virus. They weren't quite sure if these were friendly Indians or hostile Indians. Explorers could have known that if they'd made their way into certain areas, they were going to be hostile. So I leave you with this. I will put it up on my personal YouTube channel, and then I will give you a link to it. It's just the highlights of the chapter. So if you want to read chapter 1, go ahead and do that, and I'll see you next time.